Well, guys, we are back for another episode of the Liberal Asshole Show, episode 49. And what are today's topics?
Russo-Ukraine war update, Paul Joseph Watson secret mask-off recordings, Joe Manchin hates women, the ultimate Karen, Suzan Collins, Carlson, Carlson, Dinesh Dlouza fight, Pelosi wants the Republican Party to dominate the Democratic Party, and Joe Rogan doubled down on being a homophobic faggot.
Ooh. So anyways, we're actually going to stop doing this episodes week by week, mostly because of the Russo-Ukraine war, and go back to bi-weekly as we used to do because we prefer it, honestly. And my dumbass forgot to get the map recently of the war, but as I get right now, it largely, of course, has not changed from last time, as here we go. There it is. That's as of today. And at this point, like Vlog said, I think it was last time, it pretty much is just a stalemate right now. There hasn't been any that I've heard of changes really in the Donbass area, and Ukraine has taken more areas of Kharkiv in the north, so they've made progress actually compared to last week, whereas Russia's made none.
That's about it.
Yeah, and this has largely been the case like almost a month now, so because of that, and it hasn't gotten really as incredibly concerning as it was as we thought at the beginning of this conflict. I think we can go back to doing bi-weekly, although we'll still cover it bi-weekly. But not much has changed on it. And of course, I saw Ukraine's figures on the Kievan Independent on casualties they've inflicted. But remember I said, take it with a grain of salt, people. But they said they've killed up to 27,000 Russian troops recently. And they do like this thing every day, and it goes up like a few hundred or so every single day.
Oh.
And I haven't heard anything about Russia's numbers, but of course, just like Ukraine, you can't trust Russia's numbers either. Always take them with a grain of salt until the war is over and all that. So, what you got to say about this so far? In the
It's pretty good. It's annoying that it's a stalemate, but the fact that Kharkiv has been liberated is good. I've also heard that the first Russian soldier's gone on trial for war crimes.
Yep, and also, if you didn't hear since we've done the last episode, Finland has applied to join NATO now.
Yes, I heard that.
And then,
not so much like, oh, can we please join NATO? It's, let us into NATO, let us into NATO, let us into NATO.
Yep,
Bashing down on the floor of NATO.
Yep. That's funny, too, because there have been memes making fun of tankies making that argument, too, I've seen on Twitter. So anyways, Finland is applying to join NATO, and in their 70-plus years of neutrality, now, of course, they're not in NATO yet. It's going to take months for them to join it, and Sweden might also do that, too. So that makes the war even more funny, because that was one of the big reasons Russia say they did this war to prevent NATO expansion, but because of the war, Sweden and Finland, two neutral countries for like 70-plus years, are about to join NATO. So the exact thing you didn't want to happen, it is happening. And it shows that this war was not just about NATO expansion, as we keep telling everyone. There's more to it. And of course, everyone's concerned about, will Russia attack Finland now or do something so they'll be in the same position like Ukraine is and therefore won't be eligible for NATO? I don't know, but here's the thing. If they did do that, all they're going to do is just spread their armies thin. Like, look how much effort they're having right now fighting Ukraine. What on earth are they really going to do to Finland? Like, what could they do? Like, Finland would probably crush them. Because remember, Russia, do we need to remind you of the Winter War? Do you remember that nightmare? that you became a meme out of? So, and also, Finland is technologically more advanced than Ukraine is, so they would crush you even more. So I don't know if it would happen. Of course, it would be suicidal for them to do that, open up on second front, but at the same time, the war against Ukraine was suicidal and stupid, and I was somewhat expecting something like this, so you can't really view them as rational, I guess you could say. Now, the only thing I know about right now is Russia's actually cut electricity supply to Finland right now, which I found out Russia accounts for 10% of Finland's electricity, so it really is not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. Though I'm sure the Finns are very resourceful people. They'll find a way around it. So yeah, what you got to say about all this, though?
It's quite interesting. What can Russia do? Not really much.
Well, they could attack, but that would be like really, really dumb.
Yeah.
Because Finland would whoop their fucking asses. Winter War style 2.0.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think it's going to be? I guess, like you said last week, you pretty much think it's going to be a stalemate for a while now.
Yeah, probably a couple of weeks. At least.
Yep.
Maybe months.
Oh, and another thing too I just heard, like in the last week, Ukraine's also been trying to do some military actions on Snake Island, if you remember that.
Oh, awesome.
So maybe they're trying to take that back in some regard. And also, a whole Russian battalion might have been destroyed when they tried to cross a bridge, and Ukraine destroyed as they were going over.
Yes, I heard about that.
Because they're too much of an idiots to make bridges in smart places and do it stealthily.
Yep.
I mean, we've seen how incompetent they are, and they just continue to be incompetent. Honestly, this is really like their second version of Finland War. I mean, Winter War. Like, this is pretty sad. Like, everyone makes fun of them about Afghanistan. At least they did, like, occupy Afghanistan, just like America did. They just did a terrible job, like, holding it and dealing with guerrilla insurrection, all that. So, you think nothing's going to happen anytime soon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
doesn't...
don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't see really anything happen right now here, and that's why we're going to go back to doing bi-weekly, because it is annoying to keep doing these episodes every single week, trying to find topics really quickly, and it doesn't seem to be as serious now, so I think we can go back to doing bi-weekly on this. Alright, so that is it for the Russo-Ukraine War, so now what do you want to talk about next?
Secret reportings of Paul Joseph Watson, because...
Okay, so
these were...
Okay, so you brought this up recently, so what is this about? And I actually found a video that Vosh covered it, if you want to watch that, since you didn't post a video on it. So, do you want to just watch the video, or do you want to, talk about it?
I think we can talk about it while we're watching the video.
So, do you want to have lead in to about what this is about?
Okay, so Paul Joseph Watson, as you don't know, he's the main acolyte of Alex Jones.
Yeah.
He's not quite as crazy as Alex. Like, he at least acknowledges Sandy Hook and a couple other things.
But he's still just as stupid.
Yeah, he's still really, but he's not quite as hyper-idiotic as Alex Jones. And he's not as conspiratorial either.
So
So people would be like, oh, it's a bit more reasonable.
But when we say reasonable, we mean like the Fox News reasonable. Like a huge bunch of salt. I mean, pinch of salt in that regard. So yeah, what did they say recently?
Oh, it was, absolutely went off, pulling every negative is in the fucking book.
Are you surprised?
No, but what, like, the thing is with Paul is that he, the Paul Joseph Watson read them, like, you don't expect him to do it so explicitly.
I expect nothing less from idiots. And also, this video is about Nick Fuentes, too. So we can watch Bosch make fun of two dumb idiots. Alright, let's see what this leaked audio is about.
Should I listen to this Paul Joseph Watson audio? Let me just see how demonetized this is going to get my channel. Following audio contains inflammatory and offensive language. Okay, now I'm hearing it. He's so British. That's gonna get my channel. No. I'm not gonna put that on my editors. You can.
Bosch, quit being
exactly
a pussy.
what we read out loud, except he says it in the British way. You read it out loud. Well, I didn't read the slurs. Paul Joseph Watson, the ironically extremely soy-faced Bonger YouTuber. Just a couple
And he
of
talks
days
about
ago,
soy
had
all the
his
time,
own
remember?
version of
And he takes soy.
the Richard Spencer leaks, you know? Now, I always feel kind of cucked going over these because if you go over Paul Joseph Watson's content for like 5 minutes, it's very obvious that he's a Nazi. Or at the very least a fascist, you know? It's not exactly subtle. There are probably a lot of like more moderate conservatives that like him and they're just like kind of too stupid or, you know, like brainwashed to pick up on the signs. So like I don't know who even cares or like who's surprised by this, but far-right YouTuber and former InfoWars editor PJW said he would like Jewish people to be wiped off the face of the earth. Classic.
That's pretty
That's a
spicy.
classic one for the Nazi types.
Yep.
In the recording made during
And
a
I'm not
party in
surprised
Sheridan-
either.
He goes to parties? I'm impressed. To my knowledge, by the way, I don't think that he's tweeted since this article came out. He's only been retweeting other people. He hasn't tweeted since this article came out. And he normally tweets quite often, I think, as well. Anyway, in the recording made 39-year-old Watson, he's 39, can be heard saying, "I really think you should press the button to wipe Jews off the face of the earth." Hopefully the person he was talking to
You
didn't have
mean
that
nuclear
button.
weapons?
The recording was confirmed by 3 secondary sources.
Like, I'm curious what button would that be, but if that was the case, that would wipe out you too, Watson. Like, what?
Watson.
And again, I guess I'm not surprised, because you guys are stupid.
Byline Times contacted Watson and his lawyers with numerous requests for comment but received no response. Watson uses a string of racist and homophobic epithets and claims that he is sick of media.
Faggot.
I want to make this easier with my editors. You know, they're going to have to bleep me a lot. Media F-slur activists sticking signs up in my face trying to get me to join the gay F-slur Palestinian cause.
Gay, faggot,
I don't give a shit
Palestinian
about Israel
cause.
and Palestine. I care about white people. Not sand, N-word, Jew... Begins with a P, ends with an I? No, I'm asking. Oh, right. That one. Yeah, sorry, that's not as much of a slur here in the States. We don't use it, so I don't think of it. P slur, F slur, C slur.
Not sand, nigger, Jew. I don't know what this P-I slur is, since he says that's not an American slur, so I have no idea what that is. Do you know a slur that begins with P, ends with I, and has 2 dashes, so it's 4 words? I mean, 4 letters. Faggot, and I'm sure coon.
Oh, Packy.
Oh, yeah, I know what that is. So for everyone who don't know, Packy is a British slur against Pakistanis.
Yep.
Great.
So I care about white people, not sand, nigger, Jew, Packy, faggot, coons. Whoa, boy, now that was a spicy one.
One secondary source said they heard Watson make similar comments on other occasions.
5 bloody slurs into the same freaking video.
I guess he learned from Gavin too much.
Really?
No, Gavin learned from Paul.
They didn't just do it the once? Recording is also shared on social media. Despite being part of the alt-right, a movement that has often repeated anti-Semitic conspiracies, I don't know if it's to our benefit to pussyfoot around this. They're just Nazis. Watson has a quote from the Jewish Voice New York on his Twitter profile and has been defended by right-wing Jewish bloggers as not being anti-Semitic.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's Benny Boy.
Jewish Voice New York told Byline Times that it never endorsed
Give it a bit, and a couple who probably will start defending him on the so-called left.
Joseph Watson. Then we talk about the alt-right. In a recent video about the French presidential election, Watson used the murder of a Jewish man in Paris as a rhetorical tool to attack President Emmanuel Macron, and then the African migrant communities within France, blah blah blah. It really astonishes me how ineffectively people comment on stuff like that. You know, like they're Nazis, right? You know, it's just Nazi shit. It's
Unfortunately, Voss, I'm sure you know this deep down. When you call people that, it just turns off people when they hear it. Like, when you say Nazi, people only want to hear that for like people that actually do like Nazi stuff, like Holocaust and stuff like that. Like, if you just call someone a Nazi, that's just not good enough for them. That's like, it makes you look stupid in their eyes. That's why calling them like the alt-right and stuff like that is more useful. But I know deep down you know that.
It's funny this would happen right now because Nick Fuentes has also been going through his own drama storm as of like 2 days ago. In fact, I think it happened on
What
the
has
same
soy
day,
face Nick done this time?
which is quite the
And I
coincidence.
learned that from
you know.
and I learned that from Hunter.
Yes, the cum couch, of course. Please, can we cover Nick? Oh, what happened with Fuentes? Okay, I admit it. I didn't see anything on Zan's stream, I'm afraid. He did cover this stuff, probably in far more detail than me, but I watched this. It's some Nazi YouTuber. I don't know if they're real big, but they were covering some drama. It was like the fall of Nick Fuentes or whatever. The basic gist of it is this. You're gonna laugh, okay? It turns out that Nick Fuentes, in private, is a bit of a narcissistic sociopath. I know. They were shocked too. Now, it turns out he's a complete psycho. There was a bunch of funny stuff in there, like him lying about money and legal stuff, and like threatening people and like people in his own organization, and acting really gay. Like they'll say a lot of stuff is gay, but like
All this stuff so far is not surprising.
Nick Fuentes is gay. You know, like I'll join them. I'm of one mind. You know, if they were doing a trial on his homosexuality and the Nazis called me in as an expert witness, you know, I would testify as a homosexual. He's a bit fruity. But anyway, the basic gist of it, he has a bunch of like more competent political types around him, you know, like other Nazi guys.
Wow, there are people in the comments that are having a meltdown because he called him a fruity. Your comment section is like some of the worst people ever that they're having a meltdown over something so minor. Big deal.
And they do like the political handling and stuff, and he's kind of ostracized and alienated them by acting like a bitch. And the most recent thing is apparently his so-called best friend and like the right-hand man of the whole movement or whatever. Nick got really mad because he like kissed a girl or whatever, and Nick like bragged about using a black light on the furniture in his former friend's apartment to see if there were cum stains or something like that. But he burnt like a bunch of bridges. The whole thing was really, really funny. No, like they're all psychotic. It's a marked distinction because Nick Fuentes somehow looks like a psychopath next to the other psychopaths that he surrounds himself with. It's remarkable, genuinely. You know what I mean? It like he really has to distinguish himself to be held in that regard. Also, apparently, his Cozy.tv streaming website, the one Destiny joined, has a viewer multiplier in the background, and he has far fewer viewers than he claims to. He actually boosts them. The site out.
Again, I'm still not surprised. Nothing's so surprising so far.
They actually are. So
I want to hear some spicy things, though.
No, it was really funny. The whole thing isn't Cozy a Nazi place? Yeah, it is. He also worships Stalin, apparently. Nick Fuentes.
Ooh, now that is interesting. Really? A white nationalist? Liking Stalin? Oh, let me guess. All the Jewish purges. Ooh, that's like the only thing I could think of being the reason.
For a variety of reasons. Because the other Nazis were like, dude, it's so gay that he worships Stalin and not Hitler. And in my mind, I'm thinking, ideologically, there's no reason why Nick Fuentes wouldn't worship Stalin. Stalin and Hitler were remarkably similar in a bunch of ways. But the other guys there didn't get that because they think of Stalin as a communist, you know. There was no red-brown alliance. There was a brown-brown alliance, okay? It's like shitting brown pants, you know? There's no... Aesthetics aside, it's just funny. It was really fun. I watched it for longer than I care to admit. Yeah, his like, Nazi buddy-buddy arc, you know, they're like... They come off as reasonable next to Fuentes, which is a remarkable thing. You probably saw that pic of young Stalin when he was hot. Apparently... Remember how I've always said that Groypers LARP as tradcaths and it's completely for show? Apparently, Nick Fuentes not only, like, wouldn't go to church and wouldn't, like, say grace before a meal, but, like, scoffed at people doing a rosary prayer during one of his events or something. Oh, yeah, and he kept trying to get other people to watch the show.
I'm not surprised.
Euphoria. Listen.
Sounds like he's just a grifter.
Nick comes out either as a gay or a trans... I don't claim him, okay, but I will say publicly that, you know, he should live his best life.
and embrace who
That's
you
all.
are.
My personal
Yes.
opinion, you know. Betty watches Riverdale or some shit too, Lamau. All of the descriptions of him in the background made him sound like a fucking repressor. Seriously. Like, all the descriptions of him made him sound like a schizophrenic, but like depressed that they're not being treated like a girl. I don't know. There's a lot.
And yeah, for all of you that don't know, historically, this was more of a case back in the 2000s such, back when gay marriage was more of a fight to make it legal for gay marriage. It's like the most hardcore, like, anti-gay conservatives and all them would always be caught doing gay things. They were always caught all the damn time. The people are like the most hardcore of this stuff. Usually they're doing it to hide some insecurity about themselves. So, like, the most hardcore anti-gay people are most likely gay themselves. And obviously, Fuentes has this problem where he can't acknowledge that if he wants to act like this, maybe he's trans possibly. If you are, or if you're gay, either one, embrace who you are and don't be in this piece of shit.
I remember that Steven Crowder.
Yes.
Reckon is trans as well.
Yep, exactly.
He dresses up as a woman.
Yep, and especially when he went to the gym. Remember we covered that. That was great.
A lot going on there, you know. Because the issue is here, we're not just dealing with repressor boy moding. We're dealing with that and a Nazi and fucking insane. And you think you're the reincarnation of Stalin, you know? This is like trying to accurately diagnose the gendered tendencies of Christine Chandler. You know, Chris Chan. There's just so much. There's just so much going on that it's impossible to accurately identify anything. I just want Nick Fuentes to identify her real self. God, it's stupid.
Identify as who they are and stop being far right piece of shit.
Audio. It's 37 seconds. Let me mute the stream. Let me just see how demonetized this is going to get my channel. I haven't actually heard it. I've only read it. I'm muting the audio. I can hear it. Following audio contains inflammatory and offensive language. Yeah. Okay, now I'm hearing it. He's so British.
1 minute of
Yeah, it's exactly what the that's gonna get my channel. No. I'm not gonna put that on my editors. You can look at yourself. It's exactly what we read out loud, except he says it in a British way. So instead of saying like "Why the Jews off the earth," he says "What the Jews off the earth," you know, like that. That's basically that's it. You read it out loud? Well, I didn't read the slurs, so it's more bigoted. Everything is made worse when done in that accent. Delinky, you can literally just
that sounds kind of discriminatory in some way, Vosh. Who cares what the accent said?
Anyway, fun stuff there, fun stuff. You know, we're seeing a like kind of a pruning of the far right, a significant pruning, which is interesting. And time and time again, you know, there's been this all of these people who make an effort to be optically safe, they get peeled off as well, you know? Richard Spencer, it happened with him. Nick Fuentes used to be the optics guy, but now he says the N-word every third word, you know? So that's not true anymore. Because he got banned from everything, so he's like, whatever. And, with PJW, it'll happen eventually to John Doyle. John Doyle's also a Nazi. So I guess we'll see.
And he also had a debate with Hunter recently, too, if you didn't know about that. I get the impression
John Doyle is a lot smarter and a lot less psychotic than Fuentes is by, like, multiple degrees.
I don't know. Doyle's an idiot,
Definitely
remember,
still
Vosh.
a little bit homosexual, though. For now, yeah, there's a corrosive influence on your brain. It's a little bit. He's smart. He's definitely smarter, you know. Doyle said he was almost a school shooter. Was almost? I feel like he's still gives off the energy. All right, that's enough. That's enough drama mongering. You know, if you want the full story on the Fuentes stuff, go check out Zan's channel. I'm pretty sure he either has or very shortly will put out a video on it, and he probably went way more in depth because he's closer to the drama community than I am. I don't feel scared of any of these people. Fascists keep kneecapping themselves. They don't make it easy for themselves. That's for sure.
Yet you call everyone a Nazi that disagrees with you in some regards, remember, Vosh. And you act like... And if they're so weak that they ruin themselves, then why are you so obsessed with, like, trying to bring them down that they're just going to take themselves down? Like, you're both... Like, that's honestly like one of the fascist talking points that you rail against that they are. That they both think their enemies are weak and strong at the same time. So that's kind of weird. So anyways, what do you guys say about Paul Joseph Watson's meltdown and Nick Fuentes being insecure with himself?
No surprise in either case. I've been following Right Wing Watch, and they've posted a bunch of Nick Fuentes clips, and they're hysterical. Honestly, I would have played... Actually, you know what? Hang on, I'm going to check how many of them there are.
How many what?
See if you might be able to squeeze a whole bunch of them in.
How many what?
Clips on Right Wing Watch about things Nick Fuentes said.
Yeah, I think we've covered a couple of them before on here as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've got a couple.
Oh my God. Man, that was quite a spicy take Watson had there. But at the same time, I'm not surprised. And of course, not surprised that Fuentes is not being honest with himself, as we all say, how hardcore, like... What?
Of course.
Yep. And of course, how far-right conservatives that are hardcore anti-gay rights are always gay themselves. The list goes on and on and on about how many there are. So I think, let's see, I think we've pretty much dealt with that. What?
Don't worry about me. I'm just going through finding all the clips right now.
Well, I was about to say, I think we should go on to the next topic, shall we?
Yep, that'll be... Joe Manchin hates women.
And unfortunately, the next two still involve Roe v. Wade, sadly. So anyways, recently we covered in the last episode about a leaked memo of the Supreme Court might try and overrule Roe v. Wade and all that to make it harder for women to get an abortion in a good chunk of the country. Well, recently the Democrats actually tried to codify Roe v. Wade into law. But unfortunately, it failed. And you know why? Because of Joe Manchin signed with the Republicans.
Yep,
to my no surprise. Hey, speaking of Vosh, did I ever tell you the time where I actually saw him doing a stream about something and someone actually brought up Vosh and Manchin cinema being a piece of shit, and Vosh literally said that he thinks people beat him up too much and that they're not the big problem, it's the Republicans that are the big problem. I kid you not.
Do you want to know the irony? I don't know if but I'm not sure whether it was Jacob Hickey or Jimmy Dore or something, but didn't they say something similar except replace Manchin with the squad?
With who?
Either Jacob Hickey or Jimmy Dore.
No, I mean, they replaced Manchin with what?
The squad. No, they replaced Republicans with the squad.
So yeah, Vosh, no. Manchin is the problem. We don't over-exaggerate his problems. He is the problem. Of course the Republicans were going to be against this. We needed all the Democrats in the Senate to side on this, and then Kamala would have been the tiebreaker, and I have no idea if it went through the House first, but if it did or didn't, the Democrats have quite a bit solid majority enough in the House to pass it, and then Biden would have signed it into law. But, of course, it didn't happen because of fucking Manchin. One vote was needed. Just one vote to continue this. But he didn't. And, of course, I want to hear no excuse. Of course, we know Vosh would make excuses for him. But, anyways, here is the video of Mike.
And attack the squad instead of Manchin.
Here we go for the stupidity.
Today, the Senate voted on the Women's Health Protection Act, and expectedly, it failed in a 49 to 51 vote. This was
literally one vote. Yeah, all we needed is Manchin's vote. Kamala would have broken the tiebreaker, and it would have passed. Just one vote. Now, of course, Would this have, even if this passed, would it have saved Roe v. Wade? I do not know, because the Supreme Court does have the final say, like, over the laws, pretty much. Like, the only thing that overrides the Supreme Court is another Supreme Court ruling or a constitutional amendment. And a constitutional amendment is not going to happen anytime soon. And unless the Supreme Court changes, like, all of a sudden and flips, I don't think that's going to happen. So even if this did pass, it still doesn't probably mean that it would have been still saved, but it would have been at least a try at it.
It was their attempt to codify Roe. Nobody expected it to actually succeed because it needed 60 votes. And it bombed. Even supposedly pro-choice Republicans Suzan Collins and Lisa Murkowski voted against this. And also the Republicans got the support of one Democrat who joined them in blocking this particular bill. Take a guess as to who that is. Just guess.
Mr. Manchin. Mr. Manchin. No.
Like I said, we're not 50-50 in the House. On a decent day, we're 49-51, and realistically, we're 48-52.
Yep.
You guessed right, because as CNBC explains, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin joins GOP to block abortion rights bill that would codify Roe v. Wade. So what this tells us is that even if they got rid of the filibuster to hold a vote on this, it would still fail because Manchin is anti-choice. He'd side with the Republicans. See, if they had Manchin on board and they got rid of the filibuster, then that would be a 50-50 split. The Vice President, Kamala Harris, would cast a tie-breaking vote, and then they would successfully be able to codify Roe v. Wade into law with the Women's Health Protection Act. But that's not happening because a Democrat voted with Republicans. I mean, there used to be these blue dog Democrats that were essentially socially liberal but fiscally conservative. Joe Manchin is both fiscally conservative and socially conservative as well. So what exactly is the point of him being in this party? It makes no sense that he's a Democrat.
Careful, Mike Voss will say, that is a Democrat, so automatically good. Which is why I said, that people beat up on him too much along with cinema. And we need to focus only on Republicans.
Even because Bush mentioned them are fucking Republicans with D's next to their names. You insufferable jackass.
Yep, and so is Manchin.
Democrat. Makes no sense whatsoever. He's even blocking abortion rights. And he's a Democrat. It's ridiculous. Now, there is an important lesson to be learned about this because prior to the vote, there was one anti-choice Democrat, Senator Bob Casey, and it was really unclear as to where he'd vote. But there were some activists who decided to stage a sit-in in his office, and they almost certainly changed his mind. As Kenny Stansel of Common Dreams explains, progressive activists occupied Democratic Senator Bob Casey's office in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania on Tuesday, after which the historically anti-choice lawmaker announced his intention to vote for the Women's Health Protection Act to...
This is awesome pressure. This is absolutely needed. Now, of course, we're going to actually get into, like, protests and stuff that's happened lately in a future topic, which I might get more into depth on. But here's one that it's actually valid. And it's worked. And this is what we need to do everywhere.
Codify the reproductive rights that are now in peril thanks to the U.S. Supreme Court's right-wing majority. This week, I will again vote yes to advance debate on the Women's Health Protection Act, and I will support the bill if there is a vote on final passage in the future, Casey said in a statement. The Pennsylvania Democrat statement was released just minutes after members of Lancaster Stands Up occupied his office in the state capitol. Now, Lancaster Stand Up tweeted, "We are here in Senator Casey's office demanding he support the Women's Health Protection Act and end the filibuster to pass the bill. Follow our live stream on Instagram." Now, Managing Director of Justice Democrats Becca Rast tweeted, "Minutes after this, Senator Bob Casey released a statement saying he will support the Women's Health Protection Act. Community pressure works. Thank you to every single Pennsylvanian who has pressured Senator Casey and Lancaster Stand Up for making this action happen." So that right there is how it's done. Now, I want to put that picture back on the screen one more time because this is a relatively small group of people, and I don't know.
Yeah, since you can't see a screen, in this picture, it's just 7 people.
How many people were there, to be clear? But still, regardless if this group size was doubled and they just weren't on camera, this small group of people made an enormous impact. They actually got a senator to change his mind. Imagine what you can do with a small group of friends. You can actually accomplish a lot. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, this isn't going to work on Manchin because I mean, time after time, he's been protested. He's been heckled over the last year, and he hasn't budged at all. But that doesn't mean that he won't be broken ever. It's just that there hasn't been a sufficient level of protests to make him uncomfortable enough. And maybe a sit-in wouldn't work with Manchin, but perhaps it might have a bigger impact on Lisa Murkowski or Suzan Collins. I mean, she literally called the police when she saw chalk in front of her house.
Which, by the way, is one of the topics we're going to be coming up next, which we're going to get into in depth. That's going to be funny when we get to it. It's the next topic after that.
They wrote a pro-choice message, and she called the cops. So perhaps, public pressure would make her change her mind faster. I'm not sure, but it's not like Joe Manchin is incapable of changing his mind, and no amount of public pressure is going to work. Again, you just have to exert the right amount of public pressure, and it's...
I know a certain pressure that probably would work. That would be Biden actually having a spine, going FDR and LBJ on him and telling them that if you don't support these things, I'm going to make sure you get primaried in 2024 if you run again. I will make sure you have no support from the Democratic Party. See, that actually might have to work.
Funding that you get from other sources will steal as well.
Yeah, you got to do that. But, of course, Biden is too much of a senile, weak, dementia old man to do that. And, of course, he doesn't care enough.
Too much of a brain-dead doctoring dumbass with no brain.
Careful, Jake. Careful.
Who's literally only being kept alive by the dark side of the Force, along with half the Republican Party.
Careful, Jake and Hannah will say you're ableist for saying that.
Don't care, it's a fact. He's being literally kept alive by the dark side of the Force.
It's clear it's going to take more on him to get him to buckle and change his mind. So, this is a really important learning lesson, I think. You can actually do a lot if you target senators and you protest them at the right time. You can get them to actually change their minds on issues. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in person if you can't travel. You can organize, phone call campaigns where you all call a senator's office at once. I mean, a lot of them will respond to public pressure. I know that a lot of us are kind of demoralized because we've exerted nonstop public pressure on Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin over the last year, and they haven't buckled. But still, that's not the case for every single member of Congress. A lot of them do actually respond to public pressure. So, overall, I'm not going to be too down about this vote because this is exactly what I expected. But it is interesting to know that even if they got rid of the filibuster because of Joe Manchin, they still would not be able to codify the most basic right that human beings should have: control over their own bodily autonomy. Women will not have this right because of people like Joe Manchin refusing to get rid of the filibuster.
Unless you live in a state that still has it, which a whole bunch of states like mine still would have it in their laws.
Even if they, were able to get Manchin on board to want to get rid of the filibuster, well, Kyrsten Sinema doesn't want to get rid of the filibuster. She supported this bill, but she wouldn't support it unless it got 60 votes, which tells you that she's not actually serious about codifying Roe into law. So, the situation in Congress is absolutely ridiculous. It's shameful, but this is where we're at. I think that these activists who protested Senator Bob Casey, they're creating a blueprint that a lot of us should follow if we actually do want to have an impact on politics. Do you enjoy watching independent...
Yep, that is exactly what we need to do. And I see Mike changed his ending video around, but we're not going to watch that. So, what do you guys say about Manchin? Not surprisingly, holding up progress as always.
Well, of course he does. Because he's a fucking Republican with a D next to his name. Same with fucking Sinema.
My voice would be triggered if you said that, remember? Oh!
Good, because he's a corporate dipshit.
Oh, he'll be so triggered!
I don't give a fuck.
Oh, God, he is so stupid. Alright, so now...
An American corporate idiot, and Jimmy Jor is a Russian idiot.
They're both idiots from the same perspective. Alright, so now, time to... Where's that video at? Now, we just... Mike just mentioned it while we were covering a video about Karen... Suzan Collins having a meltdown over protesters doing a message on the sidewalk in front of her house. She literally called the cops for them for it. Now talk about some super duper Karen level energy right there. That might be the most Karenest of Karens ever. And we've seen a whole lot of Karens on this show. So,
maximum over Karen.
Yeah, so this is like part of all the protests that have happened lately about Roe v. Wade possibly getting overruled. They've protesters have gotten to the point where I don't agree with them doing this, but they've been like protesting in front of like Supreme Court judges' houses and other Republican politicians to do something for it. I don't really agree with that. It violates like norms of mine. But this right here, this is literally a public sidewalk, and it's a very mild message, and she's literally going Karen over it. It's absolutely insane. So now let's watch Kyle's video.
All right, guys. So Suzan Collins, this story is incredible. It goes to show you the mindset of these powerful people in their ivory towers. So this is in HuffPost. They say Suzan Collins calls the cops over chalk message on abortion rights.
Karen!
I'm going to show you in a second. It's incredible. The Maine Republican previously voted against a bill that would codify Roe v. Wade, which the Supreme Court is poised to overturn this summer. Now, she postures as being, in favor of a woman's right to choose. But then when she had the opportunity to vote for a bill that would codify that into law,
Supreme Court judges.
She voted against it. That's kind of crazy. Suzan Collins called the police on Saturday over a chalk drawing on a public sidewalk by her home that politely...
Public, remember that. Not even on her property, just public.
Not on her property, and she went Karen mode on it.
Super Karen.
Asked the Maine Republican to protect abortion rights by codifying Roe v. Wade. Police in Bangor, Maine responded Saturday night to investigate the water-soluble message that asked Collins to support the Women's Health Protection Act, which effectively keeps abortion rights legal at the federal level in the event that the Supreme Court overturns the 1973 ruling guaranteeing abortion access. Susie, please. Mainers want WHPA, that's the legislation. Vote yes, clean up your mess.
That's literally all it said.
Yeah.
That's all it said, and she went Karen over it. Like, what the fuck?
Karen time.
That's not a big deal, Susie. Like, Jesus Christ, stop being such a damn Karen.
Guys, that's it. That's all the message said.
You called the cops over
According to the
that?
police report, the message was first reported Monday by the Bangor Daily News, which said the chalk drawing was not visible by Monday afternoon. They took it right off. Collins told the newspaper that she was grateful to police and the city's public works employees, quote, who responded to the defacement of public property in front of our home.
A very mild message, and it's defacement.
Dramatic much? Bangor police spokesman Wade Betters confirmed to HuffPost that a complaint was made about the chalk message, saying it was not threatening and no crime was committed. He said the city's public works department washed off the chalk. The senator's office did not respond to HuffPost's request for comment on whether focusing energy on constituents' reaction to their oppression is more important than the oppression itself. So I love this because here you have the police are like, why are you wasting our time?
Yeah,
Why are you
really?
wasting our time? And no, but seriously,
That's all you Karens do.
what if
Call
something
the
else
cops
was
for
going
no
on that was way
reason.
more important that they could have been taken care of? But they're wasting time on a chalk message. Okay, you want to see the chalk message? This is amazing. Here it is. Right here. Mainers want, and then that's the legislation. Susie, please. Mainers want, and then that's the thing. Something, something, clean up your mess, right? She called the cops over this. Listen. These are
Karens.
entitled, spoiled brat, pampered little pricks.
Karens, Kyle.
These are people who want to be able to make the most important decisions that impact everybody and get zero pushback over it. And then if there's even the tiniest bit of dissent or disagreement, they're like, I was murdered. I was murdered. Please, police, come save me. What did you expect would happen when you called the cops? Did you expect them to arrest the people who did that? Is that what you wanted?
If that was private property, maybe they would or do something like that. But that was public property. It's a sidewalk. You fucking Karen. Get over it, you fucking cunt.
Like, what even was going through your mind? I can't, like... They're incredibly isolated and insulated from the effects of their actions.
Because they don't care.
And this is what you get.
Of course they don't.
By the way, she absolutely should have voted for that legislation. Now,
but she
don't get it twisted. When the Supreme Court officially gets rid of Roe v. Wade, and then it's just, the legislative branch and the executive branch that can act on it. Under Republican administrations, they're probably going to roll it back. But at least while there's Democrats in there, you should have a situation where they have the laws as they want them and as the country wants them. But no, she was against it. Anyway, this goes on, but it doesn't really say anything else that's new information. What is there to say about this? How entitled, how spoiled, how privileged. I don't like to use that word a lot, privilege, but this is like the most privileged shit I've ever seen in my life.
Kyle, the correct term
Calling
is
the cops over a polite
Karen
sidewalk
Kyle.
chalk message that's like, hey, can you just please do your job and uphold the will of up to 70% of Americans, please?
No, actually, up to 80%
Suzan
of
Collins
Americans.
thinks that's gone way too far, and she must put a stop to this. If you want to see me...
Oh, my God. So, what do you guys say about Karen Suzan Collins showing some massive Karen-level energy right there?
No surprise. No surprise.
Please. And like I've said earlier, I don't really like them doing protests like in front of people's house and stuff like that. But if you're going to do stuff like this, like on sidewalks, keep doing that, please. And then we can laugh at all these idiots continuing to be Karens and all those stuff. Oh my God, they're just so stupid. All right, and now, what do you want to talk about next?
What's next on the list? Give me a moment. We're up to Carlson and Dinesh Dlouza fight.
Tucker Carlson, I mean to say.
A convicted felon who believes the Democratic Party was not founded by Jackson in 1825, but was founded by Cain after he killed Abel and escaped to a town.
So anyways, Tucker Carlson is just an idiot, an absolute moron on Fox News we covered before, but we never covered this guy before. Dinesh D'Souza, or as we got from Cenk, Dinesh Dlouza, because he's a far-right idiot who does pretty dumb far-right documentaries that spew factual, incorrect crap about Democrat good, Republicans, Democrats evil, Republican saviors and all that, yada yada yada. And he went he was
the guy who claimed that after Cain killed Abel and fled to a town, that's when he founded the Democratic Party.
Yep, and of course he is a convicted felon because he was doing corruption charges where he had his mistress donate money to a politician he wanted, even though he was over his limit and it was his money given to her. And he went to prison for it, but of course Trump expunged his record when he was president. And he act like, and Dinesh Dlouza act like he was the oppressed one, like he was the victim that Obama went after because his movies were just so good.
That's all those people get. That's all they get.
Dlouza, your movies suck. I've seen like almost all your documentaries on Wikipedia. Do you see the reviews on them? Like the best I've seen was like 10% reviews. Like, come on, no one takes your stuff seriously. And you act like you're the most important thing ever. So apparently, though, he and Tucker Carlson are apparently arguing over something and having a fight over it. I have no idea what it is because I haven't watched it yet. So let's see what they're arguing about. Before we play the video.
All right, guys, get the pop.
What do you think? What do you think is what they're fighting over? What stupid thing do you think they're arguing over?
I don't know. It might be the competing documentaries they're doing.
Ooh, jealousy perhaps. Well, let's find out.
All right, guys, get the popcorn ready. Get the popcorn ready. In media, Dinesh
D'Souza
accuses Tucker Carlson and Newsmax of suppressing his stolen election movie. Do words not mean anything anymore? Suppressing? How is he suppressing? Is he trying to get your movie to not play in theaters? Or is he just refusing to give a megaphone to you to spread your vile nonsense? Suppressing, please. All right, let's go through this.
Tucker agrees with the big lie, so why would you think he's suppressing
Right-wing filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza accused Tucker Carlson and Newsmax on Monday of suppressing any mention of his new conspiracy film, 2,000 Mules. By the way, Crystal watched this movie, and I think she did a monologue on it or is doing a monologue on it, so everybody should check that out. It'll probably be released by the time this is up. We'll see. D'Souza wrote on Twitter, quote, "I'm sorry to say Tucker Carlson and his team specifically instructed Catherine Engelbrecht of True the Vote not to mention the movie, quote, or not to mention the movie. The controversial pundit and filmmaker also tagged Justin Wells, the executive producer of Tucker Carlson Tonight, one of Fox News' highest rated shows, in the tweet." I love how bratty that is. I love how petty that is. Like, I'm telling on mommy. I'm telling on your producer. Maybe your producer will force you to do it. Now, by the way,
I should note, Karen level energy
this
too,
person
Dlouza.
who came up with the conspiracy here was just on Tucker's show. But for whatever reason, Tucker or his producer said you can't mention the name of the movie. Now, I don't know why that is. They're letting her spew her nonsense about the election being stolen, but for whatever reason, she's not allowed to mention the movie. Is there some sort of personal beef between management at Fox News and Dinesh D'Souza, so they don't want to promote his movie? Are they worried about a lawsuit? Because we know that One American News Network and Newsmax and even Fox News, some of them were sued and then others were threatened with a lawsuit over the whole Dominion thing. Dominion sued them because they were spewing these ridiculous conspiracy theories that like Maduro in Venezuela was controlling the voting machines and stealing it for Joe Biden. Just psycho stuff.
Biden won the election. Deal with it.
But they
don't like it, then vote him out in 2024, which, hey, since Biden's a senile old man, maybe you actually have a chance, possibly. But until then, he's the president, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Some of them were sued, some of them were threatened with a lawsuit, and then a lot of them just dropped the issue completely because they know they're like going to
the dark side of the force.
Sue the pants off of them. And by the way, Dominion, I think, won some of them or was going to win some of them. I don't remember the specifics, but they had them dead to rights. Dominion had the upper hand. So I don't know why the name of the movie couldn't be brought up, but he did allow the person on to spew the nonsense, which is interesting, isn't that? That's an interesting little dichotomy. So you're fine with the nonsense being spewed, but you're not fine with the name being mentioned. So Rasmussen says, update, like Fox News, Newsmax is taking a dive on 2,000 Mules. Also, no current stories listed. Cable TV news is wrecking itself. Remember this. I love how stupid. Okay, so Rasmussen is like a right-wing polling outlet. I didn't know they were this right-wing. Because what they're saying is you're losing all credibility if you're not saying the election is stolen. You're not talking about the so-called documentary that shows the election was stolen, so now you're blowing all your credibility. Cable TV news is wrecking itself. I despise Fox News. They also happen to be the number one rated cable news network. So they ain't going anywhere. So what is it? I don't know what's leading them to make this decision. We know maybe it is because of the lawsuits involving Dominion. They're like, we can't talk about this, we're going to get sued. Maybe there's some semblance of like, look, we want to hold on to normiedom. Like, that's something that Tucker does better than other right-wing hosts. Like Dinesh D'Souza, everybody knows what Dinesh D'Souza is. They know who he is. He is a down-the-line, doctrinaire, partisan Republican right-wing guy. That's all he is. Tucker likes to flirt with normies and independents more. That's why he does the fake populism thing. In some ways, he's heterodox. Really, he ends up supporting standard Republican politicians, so his politics come full circle to conventional establishment Republican politics. But he postures himself in a way that he appeals a little more to normies. Maybe there's some of that going on here. He doesn't want to hitch his wagon to, these total losers. But the most ironic part is what? Dinesh D'Souza is a convicted criminal who did election fraud. And his movie is to expose the Democrats' election fraud.
The irony!
We need something stronger than irony to explain this. I mean, that's absurd.
It could not have been more ironic coming from Dinesh Dlouza.
But Obama did a political arrest on me because my movies on him were just so powerful. He couldn't take it.
That is out of this world. No self-awareness whatsoever. None whatsoever. Anyway, let's see what else they have here. So Fox News, Newsmax, none of them are really covering this. True the Vote, the Texas-based nonprofit organization that provided the research D'Souza based his film on, claimed that 2,000 mules were paid by Democratic officials to collect and drop off votes in multiple states. Not buying it at all. Again, we had over 60 court cases about this, about was the election stolen. And virtually everyone was like, no, it wasn't. And it was Republican judges who laughed the cases out of court. And it was even Trump-appointed judges who did too. We had the audit of the vote in Arizona, and we found out that Biden won by more than we thought he won by on Election Day. It's over, son. It's done. It's gone. It's dead.
It's been
Mike
like
Lindell
a year and a
Sidney
half
Powell
now.
can go jerk off with
Drop
their tears.
it already.
You know, wait, is Sidney Powell a woman? Mike Lindell can jerk off with his tears. So why are you wasting our time here? Maybe that is why Fox News and Newsmax and One American News Network have moved on past it, because the lawsuits and because this shit is a dead end, bro. It's a dead end. You think this Dinesh D'Souza fake movie is gonna like change the country or whatever? The Associated Press fact-checked the film, which former President Donald Trump screened at Mar-a-Lago, and has hailed as revealing the great election fraud, and concludes it is based on faulty assumptions, anonymous accounts, and improper analysis of cell phone location data, which is not precise enough to confirm that somebody deposited a ballot in a drop box, according to experts. Look, oftentimes the so-called fact-checkers are goofy and they're pedantic, but this is an instance of like, there's probably an endless number of ways you could fact-check this movie into oblivion. How it's like false statements on top of false statements within false statements. While Engelbrecht did not mention the film by name on Tucker Carlson tonight, she was given the platform to make her debunk claims that she has immutable evidence that operatives visiting voter drop boxes multiple times based on the cell phone data. She told Carlson late last week that her organization invested in a tremendous amount, 10 trillion cell phone pings of geopolitical data that allowed us to monitor the device movements around drop boxes and to develop patterns of life and determine whether or not unique devices were going repeatedly to drop boxes. Over time, that became a pattern that included not just drop boxes, but also far-left organizations. And we noticed a pattern consistent with the Nexus, but blah, 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 blah. You get the gist of it. All bogus. No evidence to back it up. 60 court cases. Said no election fraud. The Donald Trump did not win. Arizona audit. How many times do we have to go through this? Literally the last two people on earth talking about this, Mike Lindell and Dinesh D'Souza. Mike Lindell is a former crack addict who clearly is mentally unstable right now. And Dinesh D'Souza is a former convicted felon of election fraud. So just understand what this is. And he goes, by the way, Newsmax is also blocking coverage of 2,000 Mules. I was booked on Grant Stitchfield's Newsmax show, and then the network canceled on me. Criticize the move if you like. I think it's supposed to say movie if you like. But why isn't this a legitimate news story? Because you're a liar and it's bogus. How can so-called news networks pretend it doesn't exist? Look, again, I don't know why this fell apart. It could be that these networks have personal issues with Dinesh D'Souza. That's one
Trump has got him for us.
thing. It could be they're afraid of the lawsuits. It could be that they've just moved on and they know that you're beating a dead horse here. It could be a mix of those things. But Dinesh D'Souza is a clown. And the thing I like most about this is that now Dinesh D'Souza is, his role now in the right-wing media sphere is the I'm the one pure right-winger role. I love this because we see this all the time on the left where people like to posture, I'm the one true lefty, and people who are not like me are not actually lefties. It's so stale and boring and stupid and self-aggrandizing and arrogant. Now we got a right-wing version of that. Usually they're better at like circling the wagons and coming together behind the shared strategy of triggering the libs. Dinesh D'Souza is like, fuck that whole trigger the lib shit. My litmus test for anybody who wants to truly consider themselves a right-winger is you have to love my movie, you have to watch my movie, and you have to agree that the election was stolen. And if you're not doing those things, you're not a true right-winger, and I'm going to call you out. That's what we're seeing here. So, as that famous meme says, let them fight.
You are so stupid, Dlouza. Oh my god. Oh jeez, now that was insane. So, what do you have to say about that? Wasn't that funny or what?
Yep. Oh jeez. The purity test is insane too. Like, love my movie, support my attempts to overthrow the government, or you're a lefty, basically.
Oh boy. Dinesh D'Souza, just go away. Oh, Barriette, how about you go back to prison where you belong? That's where you that's where you should be. Alright. So now on to the next topic.
Nancy Pelosi wants the Republican Party to dominate.
I also think this has something to do with Roe v. Wade. So we might be kind of out of touch, out of sync with this, but let's see how this is. But just so you all know, this is not the first time she said this stupid thing either. This is just really pathetic, and this is why another reason why she needs to go.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi recently spoke at the Aspen...
Which, by the way, remember, she said she was going to retire before this election, but then she lied about it, and now she's running again because she's a conniving bitch.
Ideas Climate Conference in Miami, Florida, and she had a message to the Republican Party, which was a wee bit tone-deaf given everything that's happening currently in the country. Take a look.
I mean, the fossil fuel industry, they weigh in so significantly. I mean, how could it be that nobody on the Senate side cares, and the Senate cares about climate?
You don't
Some
either.
of them do, and they talk about it. When it comes to the votes, it just isn't there. They just aren't there. So rather than saying, well, we have to defeat them, no, let's just try to persuade them.
They're not going to be persuaded, Pelosi, especially when it's you, because you're the most hated politician in the country. Your approvals are terrible. You have like a 27% approval, for God's sake. Even Democrats don't like you. You need to, if you really want to make the country better, resign now.
Where you were, where you cared about a woman's right to choose, you cared about the environment. Here I am, Nancy Pelosi, saying this country needs a strong Republican Party.
Why, did you hear people clapping?
I'm not sure.
Because there were a lot of people clapping when she said all this.
But a strong Republican Party.
Counterpoint, no it does not. We do not need a strong Republican Party. We have a very, very strong Republican Party. So strong that they are now imposing their theocratic beliefs on all of the country, and they're not currently even in power. You know what we need? You know what would be really nice, Nancy Pelosi?
This is what the Republican Party needs to do. It needs to die. It needs to be politically irrelevant and never able to implement their policies ever. Ever. And that includes you going away too, Pelosi, because you're part of the reason why they're so powerful. Even though they don't have the government and power, and they're the fringe minority. They should never get what they want, ever.
See, if we had a strong Democratic Party, an opposition to fight against these fascists who are ruining this country, destroying democracy, stripping away voting rights, attacking marginalized people day after day after day in state legislatures across the country. If we had a strong opposition to the Republican Party, then we'd be in better shape. I don't know what she expects the Republican Party to be stronger than it is currently. What, because they have a bunch of psychopaths that have taken over their party that they need to be strong?
I really hate when Mike keeps doing this. Mike, they've never taken over the part. They always were the radical extremists for decades. It's nothing new. So why do you keep saying it, Mike? You know better than that. Come on.
And take it back from them. This is who they are, Nancy Pelosi. You just don't want to accept it. This is who they've always been.
Mike.
Yeah, always been. He just said always been. So why are you saying now the fringe radicals have taken over the party? They've always been there, Mike. You know that.
This is the Republican Party. It's not as if, they used to be good, as she suggests, and they just turned bad. They've always been this way. Have you not been around? I mean, she's existed much longer than me. Does she not remember all of the things that happened throughout the Reagan era? The way that Republicans have consistently targeted our social safety net, stripped away the New Deal benefits that our previous generations have benefited from? I mean, it's preposterous that the Speaker of the House, that the leader of the Democratic Party would say we need a strong Republican Party when they are absolutely strong. They're stronger than the Democratic Party. That's why we're in this predicament currently. So she says, rather than saying we have to defeat
her even harder.
them, no, let's just try to persuade them. Let's just try to persuade them. This is what you've all been doing for a very long time, Nancy, and how's that paying off? They just voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, and they're going...
Well, it's not that's the Supreme Court. That's not the Republican Party themselves, Mike. So, not really the smartest way to phrase it in that regard.
Going to go even further. They're essentially criminalizing trans existence in certain states.
Oh, actually, there was some good news about that today. That Mike tweeted out. I thought about maybe bringing up as a topic, but apparently, I think it was in Alabama, a Trump-appointed judge actually blocked one of the states doing this stuff, anti-trans bills.
Wait, what? Really?
Yes! I'm not kidding you. I had to look up on my phone again, but it's on the other side of the room. And Mike tweeted out, a Trump-appointed judge actually blocked one of these anti-trans bills in one of these states, which is insane and huge. Thank you. Although it's probably going to only be temporary, because I'm sure their Supreme Court in the state's probably going to overrule it, or like some veto in their House or Senate or whatever. But right now, that's a huge win for the moment, and I'm sure Mike will cover it too, because that was huge.
They will continue to strip away LGBTQ plus rights, women's rights. So how are you going to persuade them? They've already made up their minds. You're not going to persuade them to do jack fucking shit. You can't even persuade people in your own party to go along with your agenda.
Like
so how are you going
Manchin.
to get Republicans to go along with it? I mean, how many times are they going to suggest that they could work with Republicans and convince them, and then have Republicans spit in their faces and then turn around and say, well, we should try that one more time at least? How about you actually fight as a Democrat? She's currently campaigning for Henry Cuellar, an anti-abortion Democrat.
Yeah, and she is fighting so hard to defend Roe v. Wade, yet she fervently supports a Democrat that's pro-life. You're a hypocrite, Pelosi, and this is exactly what we're talking about. People like him should never be allowed in the Democratic Party, ever. Ever!
He must not allow Republican infiltration of the Democratic Party.
If you want to be a Democrat, there's only one option. You're pro-choice. End of discussion.
Yeah.
And this anti-abortion Democrat is running against a progressive woman who Nancy Pelosi and Democratic Party leadership refused to endorse. And this supposedly pro-life individual denied maternity leave to one of his staffers, and then she ended up having a stillborn child as a result of this supposed pro-life individual who she's campaigning for. Why don't you worry about the Democratic Party and how you all only fight when it's against the left, and stop worrying about the Republican Party? They are psychopaths, they are extremists, and this is who they've always been. But she doesn't understand. Like, she actually thinks that they were good before. She says, I want the Republican...
I think she does know, but she's too corrupt to acknowledge it and too corrupt to want to do anything about it.
Too corrupt and too much of a bitch.
Republican Party to take back the party where you were when you cared about a woman's right to choose. When the fuck was that, Nancy Pelosi? When was that? Was there ever a point in history where the Republican Party was actually pro-choice? When was that?
Probably until the parties flipped in the 60s in the Southern strategy, because remember, the Republicans used to be more liberal, especially in the northern part. That's how the Republican Party first formed, like in the 1850s, being pro-abolition, remember?
When you cared about the environment. Again, when did Republicans care about the environment, Nancy Pelosi?
Well, there was appeared like in the late 1890s to 1900s, where the Republicans, especially under Theodore Roosevelt, were very strong conservationists and helped made the national parks and all that, which is very huge.
See, I mean, the most that you can say is that Richard Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency, but that is the sole thing that Republicans have ever done with regard to protecting the environment. And when they're in power, they fuck up the EPA. They install fossil fuel shills into that position to make sure that the environment isn't actually being protected. So in what deluded world is she living in to think that in the past Republicans weren't that bad? They've always been bad, Nancy Pelosi. It's just that you're a Republican yourself in actuality, like you're conservative. You used to be progressive. There was a world where Nancy Pelosi was very progressive before, where she supported single-payer healthcare. But now she sees that, well, I'm a conservative and Republicans are to my right, so it must be that they were good before. No, that's not actually the case. They were never good. They were always demons. They were always ghouls. And you enabled them. You were complicit in all of their attacks on us by not fucking fighting, by saying things like this to legitimize them. They should never be legitimized. These are fascists, and trying to persuade fascists isn't going to go very well for you, Nancy Pelosi. It's not going well currently. And because we don't have a strong Democratic Party, we're in this situation where our democracy is essentially dying in front of us, and there's almost nothing that we can do at this point. And this was all explained in a brilliant Twitter thread by Bryn Tannehill, who writes, just a reminder, because of non-proportional representation and demographics, in order to break the filibuster and overcome the R+6 to 7 bias in the Senate, Democrats would need to win 3 straight elections by 19 points to make abortion legal nationally. They need to win the national vote several times in a row by 5+ points to have a shot at breaking even. Most forecasters look at the 2024 landscape and don't think there's much of a chance for Democrats to hold the Senate Senate past the 2024 election. Mitch McConnell has promised that if Republicans regain control of the Senate in 2022, that he will not let Biden put any more Supreme Court justices on the bench. He would keep seats open for up to 6 years if he had to.
Which is exactly why I tell all you people that say it's us progressives' fault for not voting for Hillary, and she lost because we had the Supreme Court the way it is. Like I told you.
It's you corporatists that gave us Trump.
Yeah, and if she did win, she never would have got her Supreme Court nominees in because Republicans would block her all the time. And like he said right there.
It literally would allow the Supreme Court to go to 0 members.
Yep.
Just to stop a Democrat.
Yeah, they're never going to support him, so it's a debunked argument to shame us for not supporting Hillary. So accept it and fuck off.
Starting in January of 2023, there's probably no meaningful hope of changing the composition of the court. It is estimated that the U.S.'s already sky-high maternal mortality rate will rise by 21% as a result of Dobbs v. Jackson. This is the current case about the Mississippi law, where the Supreme Court will be overturning Roe v. Wade, by the way. Most states are so gerrymandered that changing the composition of the state legislature is effectively impossible. The GOP has been able to maintain supermajorities in the Wisconsin legislature despite losing elections by up to 10 points. Because SCOTUS has approved political gerrymanders in most states that ban abortion, there is no realistic hope of reversing these bans by voting out the incumbents who put the bans in place. Only 8% of U.S. House seats are competitive due to gerrymandering. A few states allow voter-initiated ballot initiatives or state constitutional amendments. However, SCOTUS has allowed state legislatures to effectively overturn them. Example, Floridians voted to restore the voting rights of felons overwhelmingly. The gerrymandered state legislature turned around and passed the law requiring felons to prove they have paid all court fees before rights can be restored. Problem is, records in Florida are so sloppy that it is effectively impossible to do so. This requirement is as fair as a 1950s literacy test to vote, and thus the ballot initiative was thwarted by politicians who cannot be voted out of office, aided and abetted by a SCOTUS put in place by presidents who lost the popular vote. There are very few good options for bringing back abortion rights after Dobbs v. Jackson. The U.S. political and legal system is so broken that it is completely immune to the will of the people. A lot of legal-minded folks can see the writing on the wall. And the thread goes on. She explains how essentially Republicans have taken this already flawed system, which disproportionately favors them, and they've molded it even more in their image. They've made it so that way if you're dissatisfied with government, you really don't have a good way of affecting change in the United States, which is supposed to be a democracy.
It's not.
So our voting powers have diminished substantially, even though, you know, if you look at demographics, if you look at the population of the U.S. and what we believe, well, it should be the case that Republicans never get elected, but they've broken our system and they've molded it in their favor. And Nancy Pelosi is saying we need a strong Republican Party, as if we don't already have a very strong Republican Party.
She wants to be dominated.
And the response from Democrats is, well, vote harder. Well, you didn't pass voting rights. The House might have passed voting rights, so Nancy Pelosi gets a pass here, but she can actually put pressure on Biden. I'm sure she has his ear as the Speaker of the House to say, hey, maybe you should try fighting once again to get rid of the filibuster, maybe put more pressure on Manchin and Sinema, because we're not going to have another opportunity to pass voting rights. Once we lose the House or Senate, if we lose the House or Senate this fall, that's it. It's over. They secure power, at least one branch of government, for the foreseeable future. And then what? You're just going to keep telling us to vote harder? We can't keep voting harder. You can't beat fascists by voting them out of office when they've rigged the fucking system in their favor. So, no, we don't need a strong Republican Party. Having a strong Republican Party is what we have now, and it's been catastrophic. They're so strong that they're imposing their will on everyone. We need a strong opposition party to protect us from the breakdown of democracy and not fundraise off of it, not see the overturning of Roe v. Wade as an opportunity to raise money off of your constituents who are scared right now. We need you to fight right now. We need you to stop talking about what the Republicans were or should be and actually lead your fucking party. Do you enjoy watching?
But Mike, that also requires you to vote out these people and say no when they're the only option, which you did vote for Biden, remember, in the election. When you had the option not to vote for him, you were in a blue state, so it wasn't going to matter. So you also are partly responsible for this. And you have to concede that. And also, yeah, fuck the Republican Party. They are strong. We don't need to be stronger. We need to crush them. We need them to be so politically irrelevant that they will never, ever, ever win anything ever again. All you conservatives watching, you're a fringe minority in this country, and you must never get what you want ever again. Like on abortion, only 19% of the country want to make abortion illegal. So over 70% of the country want Roe v. Wade to stay as it is. You shut the fuck up when you hear those numbers, and you accept it. Do you understand? Yep. Fucking dipshits. And also, you're wrong on every single issue, too. So you shut the fuck up, and you go away forever. Oh my god, fucking retarded. And also, fuck you, Pelosi. I hope you're gone, too. Alright. So now, on to the next topic. Joe Rogan, why? Why you're doing this again? So, of course, we actually covered Joe Rogan a few weeks ago about his double standard when it came to, like, gay rights. Because remember, we covered him, like, he supports, like, the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, and he did the grooming argument, too, and it was really cringy and awful. But then we showed him a video that Kyle covered of him destroying an anti-gay comedian, remember? But, of course, unfortunately, when it came to the Don't Say Gay thing, he doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on it once again, and made a fool of himself. And it is cringe.
In a recent podcast episode, Joe Rogan is going to defend his use of the word grooming as it relates to LGBTQ+ teachers. So he's going to claim that it's really important that him and his right-wing buddies continue to use this specific terminology because, I mean, what if an LGBTQ+ teacher does want to groom children?
They're
what if somebody uses the LGBTQ+ moniker to get close to your kids and groom them? Now, everything that he says here is deeply rooted in homophobia, but nevertheless, he thinks that really this is about protecting children, and that's all that this is about. There's no way that the Don't Say Gay law can be too purposefully vague and end up discriminating against gay people and force them back into the closets. Like, he's going to miss all of that
kids who are being abused
and claim, really, I care about children. But I'm going to explain to you why this is an incredibly disingenuous argument when we come back because of the elephant in the room that he's leaving out. Take a look.
How do you feel about education? I think it's critical. It's very important. Yeah. How do you feel about indoctrination by people that are educators? I don't like that at all. There's just two very different things. Right. And if you want to tell me that they're the same thing, I say fuck you. Because they're not. Because there's a lot of fucking crazy people that wind up being teachers. Someone said to me that...
Yeah, like conservatives.
I've read this. Not all... That term groomer. A lot of people don't like that term online. They're very upset. But they're real. There are groomers.
No, not most of the gay community. No, it's not true at all.
You don't like it? Do you not like it because you don't want children to be groomed? Or do you not like it because it's a pejorative that's used against the left?
No, it's a pejorative used against the gay community. That's what it is. And it's
anyone
wrong.
who doesn't agree with murdering gay people goes around raping children.
Yeah, it's an old stereotype that gays would molest kids and all that, which is just both wrong and heinous.
Which is, I think, more likely. Yeah. But here's what's more important. Not have people groom your fucking kids. That's what's more important than you getting uncomfortable with this word because it's used by people on the right.
They're not grooming kids, you disgusting
someone who I think is an intelligent person say that there should be a block against using the word groomer. Unbelievable. No, there should be no groomers. How about that?
I wouldn't block it either, but you also are wrong to say that they're grooming kids. They're not.
This is what they...
This is what it is. They're... Like, gay teachers are not grooming kids. It's just a debunked homophobic argument, and when we point this out to you, this is what you say. Oh, okay, and I'll stop saying that. That's what you do.
Bro, they said not all teachers are groomers, but a lot of groomers are teachers.
There you go. And that's... He sound like a socialist.
Real.
The next show, he literally sounds like a Nazi. And then on the third one, he sounds like a centre-left guy again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a real fucking problem. I mean, constantly teachers are getting arrested for exposing themselves to children, for masturbating in front of children.
And also...
fucking time that happened, and now all gay people were child raped.
And also, if that did happen, I wouldn't be surprised. I think Kyle or Mike covered it, or Vosh. I remember they covered something sort of like this, and the teacher was actually hetero. So by your logic, does that mean all heterosexual people can't be teachers?
For sending nude pictures in front of children. Every couple days there's a new one that pops up in the news.
No. If this happened all the time, I would have heard about it. But it's not happened all the time. And also, I don't trust the people that you cover, Rogan. I'm sure they're far-right pieces of shit that want to make excuses of anything to justify their homophobia. They always make shit up. Just like pro-lifers always make up these stupid debunked claims like all these states are making post-birth abortions and stuff like that, legalizing that stuff. Like, no, they're not. Like what you're saying is so stupidly false that it's just laughable and just should be dismissed on the spot.
And how many of those people haven't been caught yet? And how many of those people are out there? And how many of those people are doing it under the guise of I'm an LGBTQ educator? And
I'm keeping a tally of the amount of hate mail that you're going to be getting.
Well, it's Gad's. Oh, he's talking to Gad Sad. I haven't seen him in a long time.
Oh, wow, that's been a while.
There's people that are good people in all walks of life. Trans people, gay people, straight people, bisexual, whatever the you are. There's good people in all walks of life. There's also pieces of shit that...
But most of the LGBT community aren't groomers, as you keep trying to imply, along with your far-right audiences and homophobes.
Will use those labels.
Fairly recently where a gay guy actually murdered a pedophile?
I have no idea.
In order to get closer to groups of people and indoctrinate them. And indoctrinate them for their own sexual pleasure. And that's real.
So you don't like kindergarten teachers talking about gender identity?
Well, I think it's important. I think everyone should know it. I think it's like that's why that whole what they were calling the "Don't Say Gay" bill in Florida was so infuriating. Yeah. Like when you're saying that you oppose any sort of legislation that prevents people from talking about sex and gender identity and sexual orientation with people that are first grade through third grade. You oppose...
It wasn't just first and third grade. The bill was so vague that it actually would apply to like middle school and high school people.
Yep.
So it wasn't just first and third graders.
High school.
And also
like university. And in order to ban it for all ages.
Yeah, and also there's nothing wrong with talking about being gay. Like something so mild as explain to kids that you have a gay partner and stuff like that. No different than a teacher talking about their heterosexual partner. It's not a big deal.
Anything that restricts that, I go, okay. Who are you talking about? Because if this is open-ended, I've had some idiots for teachers when I grew up. Can you imagine if those idiots were trying to convince your child that they should be homosexual or that they should be...
Oh my God, Rogan, no, not this again, no. This is the same old stupid homophobic argument that people choose to be gay. No one chooses to be gay. If you're gay, you're being who you are. It's no different than if you're heterosexual. You are what you are. Getting fucking tired of hearing the stupid argument that we had to destroy back in the 2000s.
Great. Imagine if you have a kid that's gay.
Never mind convincing. How about just don't talk about this issue?
That's my point. My point is...
Why should we not talk about when something's so normal? How about that? There's nothing wrong with it. If it's wrong to talk about homosexuality, why is it okay to talk about heterosexuality? It's literally the same thing. Just like if kids talk to their other kids and teachers at school, they could talk about their heterosexual parents. Why can't kids that have homosexual parents talk about that? There's nothing wrong with it, you fucking idiots.
Imagine if you have a gay child and you have a teacher that's trying to indoctrinate your child into the world of heterosexuality and convince your child that they're going to burn in hell if that child is gay.
They're not.
Imagine how furious you would be. Well, it works the other way too. Right? It does. It works the other way.
They're not being indoctrinated. What it mostly is, and I guarantee you this, they're just saying that, hey, there are people that love the same sex. There are homosexuals, there are heterosexuals, and all that. There are some people that just like people of the same sex and all that. And if they might talk about, oh, I'm a kid that has 2 dads or 2 moms or whatever. No different than a kid that has a mom or a dad. Or their teacher might be gay or stuff like that. there's nothing wrong with talking about it, and talking about it is not indoctrinating.
You should be really good to be able to talk, really good at what you do. If you want to talk to a 7-year-old about gender identity,
with heterosexuality
and sex, and I've seen some of these people with lip rings and fucking blue hair. They
the good old SJW argument, like the blue hair and all that crap. So who cares they have blue hair and all that crap?
Yeah, basically, if you're gay, you're a child raping, blue-haired social justice warrior who's trying to indoctrinate kids into the religion of pedophilia.
Clearly are.
It's amazing that we're this much in deep into it, and this video's not even 5 minutes into it. It's like 20 minutes almost.
Ideologically bound. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the way they live their life. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them pursuing whatever sexual identity.
Then let them talk about it then like heterosexual couples do. Like that.
They have and living their life. But I'm saying you should not be the person that talks to children about this.
Yeah.
Why can't, then that logic also applies to heterosexual couples too. So teachers can't talk about their heterosexual partner, and kids can't talk about their mom and dad and all that. But of course, no one's going to make a big deal out of it. Exactly, because it's not a big deal. That also applies to gay parents and gay teachers and all that too.
Especially if you're a fucking history teacher.
Yeah, and you're the last person, Joe Rogan, who should be talking about vaccines, given how misinformed you are, but you couldn't shut up about that for like a year. So, some people just won't stay in their lanes, so it's ironic for you to make that point. But he's going to claim that indoctrination is bad. No disagreement there. We have common ground, actually.
Yeah, indoctrination isn't good, but you know who does indoctrinating? Conservatives. That gays are evil, that talking about America's history of racism is bad, trying to deny climate change and evolution, stuff like that. Yeah, it's conservatives that indoctrinate.
The problem is that he's not being honest about who does the indoctrination. It's not LGBTQ plus people who are indoctrinating your children. It's the right. I mean, from as young as I could remember, I had religion pumped into my brain, and it made me absolutely miserable. So if you care about children and you're talking about indoctrination, it's really dishonest of you to conveniently leave out your right-wing buddies and how much they love religion, and how at a very young age they pump religion into the brains of children. But yet you claim that LGBTQ plus people might want to indoctrinate your children. But that's not something that can happen. It doesn't happen, and that's because it's literally impossible, because you don't choose to be gay or transgender. You can't choose your sexual orientation. You don't choose to have gender dysphoria. And if it were a choice, I'd argue that because society is not accepting of LGBTQ people, I mean, it's improving, right? But because society still, stigmatizes these groups, most people would choose to not be gay or transgender.
Yeah, I want you to think about this really quickly. Even if people chose to be gay, why would they, when hell, even America, it's like 70% of the country supports like gay marriage and stuff, there's still a lot of people that in the country are still homophobic pieces of shit that would beat you up and kill you and discriminate you for being gay. Why would people choose to be gay when they have to deal with that all the time, when pretending to be straight is not just, everyone's considered that normal? Like, no one wants to choose a lifestyle that would cause harm on them, because they're not choosing. They're just being who they are.
And if they had that choice, but it's not a choice. But really what this is about is LGBTQ plus teachers not indoctrinating children, but instilling values into children. I mean, teachers are going to instill values in kids. When I was in kindergarten, I remember my teacher telling me about sharing and how it's based. So if a kid asks about the photograph on their teacher's desk, and it's, it features two guys, and that teacher explains, well, this is my partner, this is my spouse, and that teacher instills respect and acceptance into that child, that's a good thing. That's just teaching that kid to be a good person, to be loving and accepting. It's not grooming that kid. But the Don't Say Gay bill is so purposefully vague that it doesn't just rule out sexual discussions, which people aren't advocating for in grades K through 3. It basically makes it so that way these teachers have to pretend as if gay and trans people don't exist so as to not break the law. It's forcing people back into the closet. So if a kid sees her teacher at the store and she's with her same-sex partner, then she could say, who was that you were with? Was that your friend? And then if the teacher answers honestly and says that was my wife, that teacher could be fired under this law. We don't know what the parameters are. It's purposefully vague so as to scare teachers back into the closet. And that's what Joe Rogan refuses to acknowledge. Now, he also says here
he's probably
that the
too
term
stupid
groomer,
to know that, because we know Rogan's an idiot a lot of times.
a lot of people don't like that term online. They're very upset.
From all the stuff that, all the shit he's gone through.
But they're real.
All that.
There are groomers. Nobody's denying this. Nobody's denying the existence of groomers, and we also think that grooming is indeed bad. Of course, sexually grooming children is bad. The problem is that telling a kid that gay people exist in an age-appropriate way is not tantamount to sexually grooming a kid. If you believe that...
But if you're a homophobic piece of shit, they do think that's the case, though. And that's how retarded they are.
Then you also have to believe that if two parents, a mommy and a daddy, kiss in front of their kids, then they're also sexually grooming their kid. But nobody would say that. They would say, oh, well, that's actually really lovely because you're showing that kid what a loving relationship looks like.
And that also applies to gay couples, too, if they kissed.
But if it's a gay couple that kisses in front of kids, all of a sudden, it's a different story. See, it's a double standard. That's grooming, but when straight people do it, it's not grooming. And this is all deeply rooted in homophobia. You know, if a kid sees that gay people exist or trans people exist, they're going to think it's so amazing. They're going to be lured into it, and they're going to want to try it. Not how it works. Not how it works at all. He also says that... Do people not like it because it's a pejorative used against the left? He asks this question, and I love that he just admits that it's a pejorative now used against the left. So, I mean, that's... If you're making the case for this word, I think that you should probably define it first of all. But he goes on to say, here's what's more important. Not have people groom your kids. I mean, yeah. These aren't mutually exclusive. You can be against the incorrect use of the word grooming and also be against literal grooming. I mean, can you find very many people who would just be like, yeah, I think that grooming is good? I don't think I've ever met anyone who has this view, at least publicly anyways, because that would be absurd.
Maybe
reasonable people are against adults sexually grooming children. That's predatory.
Considering that Amos Yee got busted for child porn a few months back, yeah, I think that's about the only person it applied to.
Yeah.
That's gross. Nobody wants that. But you're claiming that the people against the Don't Say Gay bill, or at least implying that they want to groom children sexually. And that's why they're against the Don't Say Gay bill, because it stops them from grooming children. But that's not the case. This bill, now law, it creates a solution for a problem that does not exist. The goal is to put teachers back into the closet if they're LGBTQ. Because if they do teach these children that, yeah, I have a same-sex partner, yeah, I'm non-binary, yeah, I'm transgender, then that kid might think, oh, well, I guess that's not bad because I have a teacher who's lovely, who's non-binary. And they don't want that. They don't want society to accept gay people, non-binary people. So they're the ones doing the indoctrination because they don't want people to accept individuals who are different. That's what this is about. It stems from homophobia and transphobia. It's deeply anti-LGBTQ+, but Joe Rogan is deluded enough to think that Republicans actually care about children. Is that so? If you care about children, Joe Rogan, why do you not talk about the grooming that we see in the Catholic Church? I mean, how many evangelicals
very pervasive
are
too,
Catholics?
guys, just so you know that.
I mean, is that not part of your political wing now? Catholics and the sex abuse scandal, grooming children. They're the ones literally indoctrinating children into it.
To be fair, though, Mike, Rogan is an atheist, so that wouldn't really apply to him, though. You gotta concede that, though.
Religion and grooming them. And yet, you're talking about LGBTQ+ people as if they're the predators. No, that's not the case. So you're lying. You're being dishonest, and you're lying through admission, Joe Rogan. Everything that he's saying stems from the homophobic belief that being gay is a choice. It stems from this belief that gay people are predators and they want to prey on your children, so really you should keep them.
Remember though, Mike, it's also more because Rogan's an idiot that also changed his views depending on who he's talking to, because remember, there's that video we covered some time ago where he actually went up against and destroyed an anti-gay comedian about him saying that there's nothing wrong with being gay. Like, that's happened. So that's something else you might have to concede, that maybe Rogan is just retarded and just flips his mind based on who he's talking to.
Away from your children, and it's all homophobic. He might not think that he's homophobic because he believes that gay people should have equal rights, but the things that he believes are the product of homophobia. And now he's taking the homophobic values instilled in him and he's spreading it to his audience of 11 million people. So they now think, well, yeah, I guess that gay people can turn people gay, and maybe we should stop them from grooming kids, when that's not happening.
I'm killing them.
It's just, it's so ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So he says there should be no groomers. How about that? Sure. I don't know how you eliminate groomers, but I'm with you if you can figure it out. Absolutely, we should not have grooming, for sure. But telling kids that gay people exist is not grooming. That's the thing that he needs to acknowledge. He adds, not all teachers are groomers, but a lot of groomers are teachers, and that's real. That's a real problem. I mean, constantly, teachers are getting arrested for exposing themselves to children and all this. Okay. You're making a generalization about teachers that is unfounded. It's not backed up by data. And you're implying that these things that teachers have been caught doing, that some teachers have been caught doing, is something that the left approves of. Do you honestly think that you're going to tell the left this and they're going to say, oh, well, we want teachers to...
I honestly interpret it differently as in him saying that the gay community does this all the time. Not necessarily that the left would support it.
be able to do that. Nobody wants this to happen to kids, Joe. You're talking about all of these horrible things that teachers have done as if the left and LGBTQ plus people think that they're good. No, we don't think that they're good. No, we don't want teachers to sexually abuse children, Joe. We shouldn't have to say it. But the Don't Say Gay bill conflates kids knowing about the existence of LGBTQ plus people with actual grooming and abuse of children. And that's bigoted. That's homophobic. That's transphobic. But you're okay with that. Also, he says, and how many of those people are doing it under the guise of, I'm an LGBTQ educator? So that right there is the worst part, because he's tacitly admitting that he believes in the gay predator myth.
Yep, that's a pervasive
He believes that, you know, gay people actually want to prey on your children. Well, I mean, if we wanted to really generalize, more straight men abuse children. So can we just claim that, you know, you're more of a threat to children than gay men? Men
are overwhelmingly the rapists in society. Does that mean all men are sexual predators? No. Same goes for men. Men are overwhelmingly likely to commit, like, crime in general. Does that mean all men are criminals? No.
Joe? No, nobody's saying that, because that would
kill their kids. Does that mean all women are petty murderers? No.
Be preposterous.
Actually,
because bad things happen, that doesn't automatically denote general applicability if somebody from a marginalized community, or even not in a marginalized community, does it. But Joe Rogan, he doesn't understand this. He is duped by the Republicans who pretend as if this is about protecting kids, when really this is about demonizing LGBTQ plus people. Nobody's saying that you should teach gay sex to children in grades K through 3. Nobody is saying that or advocating for that. But notice how he ends up contradicting himself. So he takes issue with the moniker Don't Say Gay, because that's not actually an appropriate label.
You can find Twitter idiots advocating for any position ever.
Yep.
So,
and then
it's not the greatest of analogies.
Dad says, well, never mind convincing. How about you just don't talk about this issue? And then he says, that's my point. So don't say gay.
About it.
You don't like that they're talking about this issue, but you don't like that it's called Don't Say Gay. You're literally saying that they shouldn't talk about gay issues. And when I say gay issues, again, I'm referring to age-appropriate conversations. If Sally notices that her classmate Steve has 2 mommies, then the teacher can explain that in an elementary way. She doesn't have to explain, well, yeah, those are 2 lesbians, and this is what they do in the bedroom. That's not what we're saying. But Joe Rogan, he's so dense, he can't get it through his thick skull that these types of conversations come up for gay people in the same way that they come up for, straight people. Just like a kid with a mommy and a daddy might see a kid with just a mommy, maybe the parents will have to have that conversation. Some kids only have one parent. Some kids have two same-sex parents. Like, these are conversations that will come up because as kids, they ask questions, they're curious. But the Don't Say Gay bill says, can't acknowledge the existence of any LGBTQ plus people because we don't want to turn these kids gay. Because if they learn about it, they're going to turn gay like that. That's how it works, definitely. It's like a magical spell.
Not
almost.
how it works.
I mean, be for real. Be real. He also said, my point is, imagine if you have a gay child and you have a fucking teacher that's trying to indoctrinate your child into the world of heterosexuality. Okay, interesting. And convince your child that they are going to burn in hell if that child is gay. Imagine how furious you would be. Well, it works the other way too. Except which one of those things happens all the time, and then which one of those things happens never? I mean, are you serious? How often do we see gay people proselytizing and telling kids, well, this is why you should be gay. Let me sell it to you. Here's my pitch. That's not happening. It's not fucking happening. But you pretend as if it's happening. And then you claim, oh, well, you don't like how we indoctrinate kids into religion and teach them that being gay is bad and they're going to burn in hell. So you wouldn't like if the opposite were true. But it's not happening. The opposite is not happening. Can you cite one example, even an anecdote, of a gay person selling homosexuality to children in particular?
Oh, trust me, conservatives will find that, and I'm bet if whatever they find is probably not at all what it is, and they're just making up in their head thinking that it's that such. But they will find examples of it.
Hey, kids, here's why you should be gay. You can't. It's not happening. So, I mean, Joe Rogan is saying all of this because he believes the homophobic lies that he was probably fed growing up. And even though he thinks that he's in support of LGBTQ plus rights now, which he's explicitly anti-trans, to be clear, but like even though he thinks he's in support of like gay marriage, all of his beliefs here stem from deeply rooted homophobia. He believes the gay predator myth. He believes that being gay is a choice when your sexuality is not a choice. He could test that out by trying to have sex with a man. If you don't enjoy it, then you just proved that it's not a choice and you can't change it. So, I mean, Joe Rogan, he said something in there that kind of stood out to me. You know, Gad Sad said you're going to get a lot of hate mail for this. And he said, I don't care. I don't read it. Well, maybe that's the problem, Joe. I mean, you don't have to read hate mail, but maybe remove yourself from the bubble that you're in. Actually talk to anyone who's gay. Maybe talk to somebody who is a leftist for a change. Talk to someone outside of your bubble. Talk to someone who isn't just going to affirm every bad opinion that you have. Talk to someone who's not going to be your yes man. But he won't. Because when you get rich, you kind of get insulated from criticism. And at some point, I don't know if it's when you hit like 50 million or 100 million, like you become like almost... You get this God complex in a way, and I'm kind of psychoanalyzing Joe Rogan to an extent, but like he doesn't allow criticism. And you can tell that his show has deteriorated as a result, because now he just sounds like any elitist right-wing pundit. He's out of touch. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, but he thinks that he knows what he's talking about. And if you try to challenge him, then you're wrong. How dare you challenge Joe Rogan? I don't even listen to the criticism. So, I mean, okay, don't listen to the criticism, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to criticize you because what you're saying is wrong, and it is homophobic.
Yep, so what do you have to say about that? Joe Rogan being an idiot.
It's coming from Joe Rogan. No surprise. We know that he's a political snake, so... just adjust his views for the day for whoever he's interviewing, so...
Yep. Would be nice if Mike would eventually acknowledge that, because that's pretty much more of the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Alright, so now we finally got through all the topics. So like we said, people, we're going to try and go back to being bilingual, so... We're not... the next...
not bilingual.
I'm a fucking retard at times. But anyways, like we said, bi-weekly. Next week, of course, is World Finals 21, so don't expect anything that time. We'll try and do it afterwards, like near the end of May. So, see you guys next time for episode 50. Hard to believe we've been doing this for almost 3 years, and we're finally coming up to episode 50. Alright, see you guys next time.